What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Lick of the Week. This week's lesson is on one of my favorite soloing techniques, and a technique that you guys have been asking me to cover. That technique is tapping. Okay, so tapping is a very simple yet complicated soloing technique. It's used by a lot of famous guitar players, and one of the most famous, you guys should all know, is Mr. Eddie Van Halen of Van Halen. He used tapping a lot, and kind of created a big name for himself around the tapping technique. So basically, tapping comes down to a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs with your left hand, and what they call tapping with your right hand. You're not necessarily picking anything, but you're playing on the fretboard with your finger. You're like punching the fretboard almost with your finger, and doing some pull-offs with it as well. Tapping can be kind of a daunting technique at first, but once you start to get it down, you can start changing the variations, and you can start to see in music and some of your favorite songs how your favorite artists created those riffs. And tapping can get complicated as well. It can go all over the neck and do some really crazy tapping with like 4-finger tapping and stuff, but I'm going to keep this kind of basic and stick it to simple tapping soloing. So to play the piece that I showed you guys in the beginning of this video, you're going to place your pointer finger on the 7th fret of the B string, and you're going to keep your ring finger or your pinky ready to go on the 10th fret of the B string, and you're going to place your pointer finger right on the 14th fret of the B string as well, because that's where we're going to start playing. We're going to move between the 14th fret, the 15th fret, and the 13th fret. So tapping can be a little weird at first. It's definitely a different thing for guitar. It's not something that's very normal or typical. It is now, but in general, learning that kind of technique isn't the very beginning. You learn chords and how to pick and stuff like that. You don't necessarily learn how to tap. So what we're going to do is I have 2 variations of this tapping technique that I'll show you. One involves 3 notes and one involves 4. So you could pick and choose what one sounds better to you, and you could even change the variations to whatever you'd like once you get it down. So the first one is going to be the 3-note tapping piece, which is going to be a little bit easier, I think. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your pointer finger on the 14th fret of the B string, and what you're going to do is you're going to flick it. This is almost as if you're actually picking it, but you're using your pointer finger instead of a pick. That's probably one of the harder parts of tapping to get down, is the flick off, the pull off with your pointer, or your ring finger, or your middle finger, whatever you choose to use. I typically use my pointer, but pulling off is the hardest part. So what you're going to do is when you're flicking off of the 14th fret, you want to keep your pointer on the 7th fret of the B string. From there, after you do the flick, you're going to hammer on from the 7th fret to the 10th fret with your ring finger or your pinky. After you do your flick off and your hammer on, you're going to do another hammer on with your pointer finger. You're going to basically poke the 14th fret on the B string. So it's going to be a flick, hammer on to 10, hammer on to 14. And so slowly it can sound something like this put all together. Eventually you speed that up and you get something like this. Next tapping little piece is going to be the 4-note version, and basically it's going to be the same notes. So for this 4-note version, what you're going to do is you're going to start with a hammer on with your pointer finger on the 14th fret, and then a flick off. So then you're going to do a pull off from the 10th fret with your ring finger down to the 7th fret with your pointer. So hammer on with your pointer, flick off, pull off with your ring finger. Then the last note you're adding is you're going to hammer that ring finger back up to the 10th fret. So you got your hammer on with your pointer, fleck off, pull off with your ring, hammer on with your ring. So to recap, for the 3 note, it's going to be a flick off with your pointer finger, and then a hammer on with your ring finger from the 7th fret to the 10th fret, and then a hammer on with your pointer finger back onto the 14th to give you this. So for the 4 note tapping section, what you're going to do is you're going to start off with a hammer on the 14th fret with your ring finger, do a flick off, then you're going to do a pull off with your ring finger down to your 7th fret with your pointer, and then hammer on that ring finger again back up to the 10th fret. Once you practice those to a metronome and get those down, then you can start playing my actual thing that I did at the beginning. And the only thing that that thing did was I kept my pointer and my ring finger in the same position on 7 and 10, but I moved my tapping finger from the 14th fret to the 15th fret to the 14th fret to the 13th fret. And it gives you kind of a cool sound. It outlines different kinds of chords. And if you kind of mess around with it, you can get your own sound and just play around with different notes, move your hands around and see what sounds good. But this is what it should sound like. Well, tapping is a great solo technique. It's something cool to add to your solos. It's cool to add to your rhythm playing. It comes in all shapes and varieties. You can do incredibly different things with tapping, from 1-finger tapping to 4-finger tapping, from 1 string to multiple strings. It's very versatile. It could be quick, it could be slow, it could be whatever you want it to be, but just always remember, like I say with every lesson and every technique that I show you guys, practice it with a metronome. Practice it slow and work your way up. Then once you get up there, you'll be blazing fast and shredding away. So thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.